Hello boys, this is Miss Flor. I'm here to explain the present simple tense. It is really easy to understand, so please pay attention, and if you need to, you can repeat this video several times, but you won't need it. Pay attention. We use the present simple tense when we want to talk about routines and habits. Okay, this is very clear, but what is a routine? What is a habit? Things that you normally do, things that you do every day, things that are repeated. But there are other things or different situations where I can use the present simple. For facts, for example, if I say, plants need water, that's a fact, something about our life. Or for example, water boils at 100 centigrades. Okay, it's a fact about life. Another thing or another usage is when we describe things that happen regularly. The typical situation: I go to school every day. I start school at 7:35. Okay, these actions happen regularly. Or we also use it to describe permanent situations. For example, we live in Mercedes. This is a permanent situation. Or to give our opinion. I think maths is boring. I prefer basketball to volleyball. Okay? Well, let's pay attention to this. When I use the first person singular, I mean I, because in the video I am going to repeat the first person singular, the second person singular. The second person is you, okay, you. The third person singular is he, she, or it, okay? So they are the singular, but in the first person I use I, second person you, third person singular he, she, it. The first person plural is we, the second person plural you, the third person plural they. Okay? So, in the present simple tense, there is a difference with the third person singular. These pronouns he, she, it deserve our attention now. Okay? Because in the affirmative sentences, when I have the first and the second person singular forms or all the plural forms, we add the infinitive form of the verb and then what we want to say. For example, I swim in the river. You read the newspaper. We walk to school. They study English. I, you, we, they are the first or second person form of the plural. They all have the infinitive form of the verb. But with the third person singular form, we have to do something different. We use the infinitive, but we add the s at the end of the verb. For example, he plays hockey. He writes a letter. Okay? We need the final s at the end of the verb. Okay? In the negative sentences, we have the same division we use. For the first and second person plural, singular or plural forms, we use one thing, and with the third person singular form, he, she, it, we use something different. When I have I, you, we, they, we use don't, that means do not, but it's a contraction, don't, and the verb in the infinitive form. For example, I don't need a ticket. You don't speak English. They don't listen to the radio. Okay? But in the case of the third person singular, that is he, she, or it, we need doesn't. Okay? It is conjugated with doesn't. It's the verb do, but it takes a different form with he, she, or it. Doesn't is does not. Yeah, but we abbreviate and we say doesn't. plus the verb in the infinitive, okay? So we have, for example, he doesn't clean the house, she doesn't cut her hair, it doesn't work on batteries, okay? So we studied the affirmative, the negative, and now the interrogative, how to ask questions. Okay, again, the same difference. I have the first and second person singular forms, or the plural, and in a different part, the third person singular form. And why? Because when I have the third person singular, I start with do. I start with does. When I have the rest, I start with do. Okay? For example, if I have I, you, we, they, I start with do. Then the subject, that is the person, the doer of the action, and then the verb in the infinitive form. Okay? Here I have the formula. Do plus the subject, that is the doer of the action, and the verb in the infinitive. Yes, so for example, I have, do I need a ticket? Do you speak English? Do they work on the farm? Okay, I start with do, then I have the person, the doer of the action, and the verb in the infinitive. Okay, the same formula is used with the third person singular form, but I use the auxiliary thus. Then I have the subject or the doer of the action and the verb in the infinitive. For example, does he ride his bike? Does she like horror movies? Does it bark? Okay, I start with does, the person, and the verb. The verb in the infinitive, okay? When I use the negative in the third person, I copy the verb in the infinitive. I only write the S in the affirmative sentences. Am I clear? Okay, so in the interrogative, I have to answer the questions. If I have a short answer, I say, oh, yes I do, yes she does, or, for example, no I don't, no she doesn't, depending on the person, okay? But remember, he, she, or it, the third person singular, is with does, uses does or doesn't. Okay, sometimes I don't have yes-no questions. For example, if I say, does he ride his bike? I answer, yes he does, or no he doesn't. But in the case of WH questions or information questions, I start with the WH word. For example, who, what, when, why, how, and then I include do or does, depending on the subject that I need later, and the verb in the infinitive form. If I use you, for example, that there is the second in the second person in the singular or the plural, I say, what time, I start with the WH word, what time do the person, you, and finish the verb in the infinitive. What time do you finish school? Or if I have the third person singular, I use does, but it's the same formula. Where, the WH word, thus, the auxiliary, Tom, the person, and live, the verb in the infinitive. I don't add the S, okay? So, to sum up, I use do with I, you, they, you or we. You can be the singular or the plural, yeah? And does with he, she, or it. So I say, do you like pizza? Does he like pizza? I start with do or does. I write the person and then the verb in the infinitive, like. Okay? Okay. The present simple has some spelling rules that are important to analyze when we use the third person singular. Okay? So pay attention. I divided them into 4 categories. We add the S at the end of most verbs. So in general, the rule is that at the end of most verbs, we add the s. That's very simple. I start, he starts, she stands, she works, she reads. But unluckily for the students, this is not the same with all the verbs. The second category is when the verb finishes in ch, sh, s, x, or o. So in this case, we have to add es to the verbs that have this ending, okay? So we need to copy catches or teaches, smashes, washes, passes, fixes, goes. The third category is when the verb finishes with y. But wait a moment. The y in this case is preceded with a consonant, by a consonant, sorry. So, when we have the consonant and the y, we have to remove the y and we add ies. So in this case would be studies, Harris, carries, flies. Okay? So we remove the y and we add ies when the verb ends with a consonant and a y. The fourth category is when we have the y, but it ends with a vowel and a y, like stay, enjoy. Oh, that's super easy. We only add the s. Okay? Well, one more important thing. When we talk about the present simple tense, we also learn the adverbs of frequency. They tell me how often we do the different verbs, the different actions. When I do one action 100% of the times, I use the adverb of frequency that is called always. Okay? This number is approximately, okay? It's approximate. I use, for example, the 100% of the times, always. 85, 75% of the time, usually. 60% of the time, often. 50% of the times, sometimes. 30%, rarely. 10%, hardly ever. And look at this, 0%, never. Okay? These are the adverbs of frequency, together with other time expressions like every day, on Mondays, every week. I used as time markers with the present simple tense, okay? But when we learn the adverbs of frequency, we also learn where to place them in the sentence. So, I have to make a difference here. If I have the verb to be, for example, I am, the adverb of frequency goes after the verb be. Yeah, so I have the verb be, the verb to be, I am, and I copy the adverb of frequency after the verb. I am always late. But if I have a main verb like drink, I have to place the adverb of frequency before the main verb. So I say, I always drink tea. Okay, is it clear? Well, one more thing. Sometimes I have the verb got. So in this case, the adverb of frequency goes between have got. I have always got my phone with me. Okay, people? So that's the end. Okay? Bye-bye. I hope it's clear. See you.